Okay. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's nice to listen to you when you are all bubbly there, but sorry to interrupt that, and let's begin with our teach-in session. So you are all extremely warmly welcome to this teach-in session of our festivities. And my name is Anna-Birgitta Pessi, and I'm really delighted to chair this teach-in session of our wonderful fellows. And the idea in this session is to present you a versatile picture or a collection of the ongoing research at the Collegium. And 13 of our Diamond Fellows will present their views and experiences under the umbrella title of Putting the Use into Action, which is pretty much what Professor Hohti was calling for in the morning session. And yeah, we'll hear about the action this afternoon. And the speakers have indeed been asked to reflect on their themes of the morning sessions in relation to their own very concrete research work. And this will be a potpourri style of a teach-in, and we will hear our 13 speakers one after each other without any discussion, without any comments. And the floor truly will be only theirs. However, overall discussion starting at 4 o'clock today, this afternoon, will give you plenty of time to post questions and comments and notions based on these wonderful mini presentations. And in this teach-in, each of our speakers will have exactly 5 minutes. And I'm very lucky to have one of our wonderful research assistants, Taavi Sundell, here. He's the king of this clock. So in case our speakers, if she or he will exceed the time limit, there will be a terrible beep or some kind of noise, thanks to Taavi.
With your time, Modi, when does the timer start? When we start talking or when we...
Only when you start talking, so you will have some time to come up here, and only once you open your mouth, so then Taavi will be really alarmed. And he will also help you all with the slides, so you really only have to speak and think. And I myself, I'm methodologically speaking an empirical scholar, so in order to present our wonderful speakers to you all today, I have conducted a little survey on them. And I have asked their views concerning, first, their personal interdisciplinary space or interdisciplinary identity, and second, concerning their academic passions. And the fellows have really provided me with fascinating, thought-provoking replies, and I will present them to you throughout this teach-in session. And our first speaker will be Kathryn, or Kay Edwards, and she describes her academic discipline as folklore meets theology meets social history. And she says about her academic passions that she's mostly interested in the messy bits, the ideas and time periods and places where many of the standard concepts and cliches do not hold. And this has moved her to study 15th and 16th centuries and also common ideas on, for instance, coasts. So, Kay, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. You can start. Are you starting my buzzer? This is going to be interesting. Actually, I'm switching around a little bit the title of the talks that we had this morning into something, I guess, that kind of fits my very, very painfully, probably, American sensibility a little more, which is, in what ways are the human sciences useful? I'm starting from a premise that they actually are, a premise that might seem, perhaps, a little odd, given that I study a subject that can really seem both useless and unscientific. That is actually the belief in ghosts. And I'm going to hit the wrong buttons, of course, there we go. And in fact, I love this picture because that's usually how people feel when I first start talking about my topic. In any case, what I work on is the period from about 1300 to about 1750, or as I describe in my work, the period from the Black Death to the Enlightenment. And in particular, I focus on how belief in ghosts, in apparitions of the dead, have changed during that time. It's a fundamental time for understanding the evolution of beliefs in the dead and in human attitudes towards death. It, of course, starts with one of the greatest mortalities of European history. In the middle has the Reformation, which, of course, vastly changes, or though some may challenge that, the theological, the ideological premises underlying religion, and therefore the Christian religion, and therefore the way people approach death, and ends with the Enlightenment, which brings in itself, I would argue, a whole other series of baggage about rationality that still continues to plague modern and, dare I say it, perhaps scientific approaches to the world. To deal with this topic, I want to focus on three areas. The first is, as I call it, how the durability of belief in ghosts can be used to understand alternative approaches to communal life. As my students might say, how could people ever think that way, whether they're referring to 13th century individuals or modern individuals? That's the common cliche about the usefulness of history that most historians grow up with. The second point I want to talk about is this whole idea that ghosts are good to think with, to paraphrase a very famous phrase. That is, how discussions about ghosts have been used to ground much more esoteric topics, like debates over the validity or invalidity of atheism, for example, or the reliability of vision as a standard of truth or proof. And the third point I wanted to talk about is actually something very tied to the kind of hard science motif, which is how the pursuit of ghosts, that is, the study of apparitions of the dead, inspired scientists and technologists to pursue innovations, particularly in the 20th century. So in terms of the durability of such beliefs, the pictures here I put in because they're, with the exception of the top one, admittedly, pre-modern depictions of what a dead person would be like. A dead person can be a strange kind of hollow shrouded thing. A dead person can be, and it's unfortunate the room isn't darker. This guy has about 8 different arms and is waving them at someone in bed. And then, of course, the famous Witch of Endor from the Old Testament in the Christian Bible. This is very much representative of an idea of the community of the living and the dead, which is a kind of cliche about pre-modern society. That just because someone dies, they do not lose interest in worldly society, and therefore, in some ways, the worldly society should not lose interest in them. It also, however, has positive implications, and implications that the dead really are just like us. They come back, they talk to their friends, they don't necessarily need anything, or they come back and go, please, please help me. It's not just a question of dead people coming to almost irrationally scare the bejeems out of the living. And in fact, dead people have purposes. These are very sincere pamphlets, in this case of the 17th century, talking about how a ghost revealed a person who had actually murdered, in this case, her. And there are quite a few examples from all over Europe of this. These ideas, despite what a whole kind of group of intellectuals very much influenced by Enlightenment philosophies might like to believe, are still very, very much with us and very much motivate people. The ideas behind spiritualism, this intermeshing of the living and the dead, that still continues to influence many both religious beliefs and, I would argue, kind of personal moral movements in the 21st century. And then my personal favorite, the ghost researcher and paranormal investigations. You're missing Thomas Edison do his ghosts. I'm sorry, it took longer than I expected. Oh well, I thought